Welcome back to the show, Erin. It's always a pleasure to connect.
Well, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Oh, goodness. Mine too. Mine too. All right, let's just jump right in and get to know you a little better. You were on the show previously, way back in the beginning, and you taught us a lot about the Enneagram. And I still reference that to this day, just all of the wonderful things we got to learn. Okay, so a current show you're watching, because it's kind of fun. What are people watching? What's good?
My husband and I were watching Lessons in Chemistry,
Okay. Okay.
and
Okay. Okay. What are you thinking?
yeah, and so we're waiting for the second um, season because we're so hooked and we love it. I never read the book, but it does make me want to read the book, but loved it.
That was going to be one of my questions. Did you read the book? And as somebody who read the book, I will tell you it's very true to the book, which doesn't always happen for good or not good, whatever, however you want to view it. But yes, very true to the book. So have they renewed it? I mean, are they thinking they want to come back with the second season?
Apparently that's what the rumor says, so I'm
Okay, the
hoping.
rumor mill. All right. Okay, very good. Well, we shall have to see. Yes, very, very well done. Very well done. And that's on Apple TV. Little plug for them. Anybody who might want to go view it, I agree. It was very good. All right, your biggest crush growing up. This is so fun.
I think the biggest crush was Tom Cruise. I'd have to say that.
Okay.
I'm assuming you mean celebrity.
Oh,
Tom
what? No,
Cruise.
not necessarily. Some people answer, some boy in the sixth grade, or it doesn't. There are no wrong answers here. No wrong
Mm,
answers.
I love that. Well, I'll just stick to Tom Cruise, but very shortly after, once Brad Pitt came, that was it for me. That was probably more the 90s, but
Okay, well, clearly you're in very good company with both those answers because, they're both wildly popular and have been for many years, in part based on looks and in part based on talent. And so there you go. All right, what is the thing you are most afraid of? And this is kind of skewing more to the irrational side. I mean, I don't necessarily,
mm,
unless you really want to go deep and dark and heavy, we can do that too.
gosh, most afraid of. I think the most afraid of is losing one of my kids.
Oh
Not to go
gosh.
dark or deep, but that would be my biggest. But on
Oh,
a,
yes.
I know, on a day to day, I think just, I don't know, I guess it would be something like being stuck living somewhere I wouldn't want to be living. That's the only thing that kind of
Right.
comes
Oh,
to my
right. Living
head
somewhere.
is,
Right, right. Yeah. Okay. Gosh, those are both really good. Those are both really good because, there are people who have lost their children. There are people who are living somewhere they don't want to live. And so, yeah, those are very understandable fears. And for those of us who are, where we want to be, stand very grateful for that and also hopeful that those who are living somewhere they don't want to live can find the way to get out of that situation. I mean, that's without going too deep, that's something we hope for others. Okay, gosh, those are good. A random fact most people would not know about you.
hmm, a random fact that they wouldn't know about me. I had ADHD as a child, and it was incredibly rare back then and rare for a
Mhm.
girl. It was just starting to kind of come on the radar. And
Right.
this Dr. Feingold was kind of spearheading this approach that these kids that had ADHD was because of all of the additives, preservatives, colorings, flavorings that we were putting in our processed food. So
Hmm.
my mom, being a pediatric nurse practitioner, did not want to just stick me on Ritalin.
Right.
She decided that she'll go the organic natural approach, which is so my mom. So I had to take 15 pills 3 times a day as a child. So
Whoa.
I took 45 pills a day, breakfast,
Whoa.
lunch, dinner, and it was really in hindsight, horrifying. I never would make one of my kids do. And to this day,
Oh,
if I smell that B vitamin, that certain smell, I really reflex to that. And
wow.
I wore out my family's furniture. That's how much I had the energy of probably
Oh my
three
gosh.
kids in the body of one little girl. And so I
Oh
would
my
jump on the
gosh.
furniture. I was I was just all over the place. So that's probably something people don't know about me.
No, gosh, I did not know that about you. Okay, of course, this leads me down a couple sort of follow-up questions, and that is, I guess my first instinct or to ask the question, did it help? Did all these pills actually help?
I don't know, I'm sure they did,
Okay,
but it didn't solve. It wasn't like all of a sudden I was miraculously calm.
okay, right,
It might
okay.
have helped me to be better, but you know,
Right.
you ADHD kind of has to run its course. You get rid of the H later, you know, as an
Mhm.
adult, and then you always will have the ADD. But I've learned to master it so well that people don't know that. Actually, I use it as my superpower because I can really focus now. So people maybe wouldn't
Ooh.
know that about me other than my energy, and I tend to I can talk a lot. So my brain, I'm a quick processor. My brain goes fast. So
Well, I love that you look at it as your superpower. That is so cool. Really, I mean, just being able to, it's just the shift, the total shift of, you know, I'm not gonna wah, this is me, like, no, this is a good thing and I'm gonna use it for good. I think
yeah.
that's fabulous. Such a good way to look at it, a good way to live into it, lean into it, all those things.
Mm.
Wonderful. What is something if you could go back and tell your 10-year-old self, what advice would you give your 10-year-old self?
I would probably say that this too shall pass and that life is going to get bigger and better. So hold on tight, right? Because at 10, you're stuck in the middle of it. And you know, I think being the youngest of three and my mom was working, so I was very independent because I was kind of, you know, that latchkey 70s kid where you were just kind of figured it out on your own and had
Yeah,
to, you know, break
right.
through, you know, the if you lost your key to find the side window that was open. So I think sometimes I felt a little lonely, or alone, but I think I would tell myself that, you know, things are gonna get just better and just to hold on.
Right. I love that. Hold on tight. Yeah. Because when you're 10, s- things seem so big, right? You have
Yeah,
less things, but they're even bigger because you
that's
have
right.
less.
That's great.
And then as you get older, you realize, oh gosh, why did I fret about that? It wasn't as big, but it was when you were 10. When you were
Yeah,
10, it was huge.
that's right.
Right. Well, I love that advice. That's fantastic. We are in a surrender series right now where we're looking at times, like a particular time you had to surrender. You just had to like let go because you could not at that time anyway really do much about the outcome that was coming at you. So tell us a time that you had to surrender and what that looked like.
Yeah. Well, I would say about a year and a half ago, I had such a profound, clear, uncontrollable uh, surrender of relationships and with my family and then some friendships. And so it was very clear very quickly that God was what my spiritual director called moving the pieces on the board for me in my life.
Yeah.
And right. So it started with literally the day of my dad's memorial. So he had passed, and we were um, at his church that he had been a member of for a long time. And the pastor was saying incredible things, the legacy my dad left.
Mhm.
And so I spoke at his memorial, and my son, right after, you know, we then moved into the hall for refreshments and all that. And
Right.
my son came up to me and just said, wow, you know, I'll try not name names, but
Okay,
our cousin, well, it's okay, she probably will never listen to it, but she's like, Luke just dropped a bomb on how he feels about our family and all of this.
right.
And I was like, what do you mean? And my nephew has Asperger's, and so he doesn't have a filter. And so he just kind of says what he feels or what he hears or,
Right.
what is around him. And so apparently my sister had made comments about just various things about me and my family. I had no idea. And so I was like, oh, and then I go on up to my sister and said, I reserved a place at a Mexican restaurant for all of us siblings to go have dinner, just our families after, and, kind of process and just connect. And she was like, I don't like Mexican food. And
Mm.
and then, we had kind of been distant over the last 10, 15 years. I've never felt incredibly close with my sister. She's 5 years older. We're very,
Mhm.
very different people, probably about as opposite as you can get. And so all of this, came tumbling down on the day of my
Oh
dad's
my gosh.
memorial, that I was like, gosh, I didn't know she felt this and this and this. And so it was kind of a shadow on a shadow. And so it really bothered me the next couple of days because some of the things she had said were such kind of unfair untruths. And they were things like, you're asking mom for money because you spent all this money on private Christian school for your kids. So now you don't have money to send your kids to college. Untrue. And, all of these kind of things and judgments and misconceptions about me. And so I'm kind of someone who's about justice, and that was really hard for me. So I knew I had to give her a call, called her up a couple days later and just said, hey, can we talk? Kind of some things have come up and, you know, um, all of this stuff. And so we had actually a very good, productive talk. It was tough, but it was, you know, I got to tell her, gosh, I just feel like I'm on trial and have not, been accused for these crimes. And in your mind, I think for her, she had, um, I'll give you a couple examples of what she was saying, but she had equated, I'm a believer, therefore I'm a Republican. And because you're a
Yeah.
Republican, here's a drop down, menu of all the issues you believe in. And they're all against my issues because she's not. And just assumed that kind of who I was, what I believed, how I raised my kids, all of it in a bundle of
Mm.
you're a Christian / Republican, which ironically, a couple of years ago, I switched as to independent because I don't like that exact reason of someone telling me how I should think and how I
Right.
should vote. And I really was looking at both sides, and I really didn't feel great about being a part of either party personally. But so
Right.
I tend to be more neutral. You tell me what the issue is, and I'll tell you what I believe. But I just don't want to subscribe or be put in that box, ironically. So I said this to her, and she was shocked to hear this. Again, she doesn't
Mm.
know me, so she assumed these things. And I told her, I
Right.
said, you don't know me, Heather. I said, you don't know what keeps me up at night. You don't know what my hard times are, what I cry about. I said, you don't know my friends. You don't know whether I go to church or not. You don't know how I vote. You don't know what I believe. You don't really know anything about me because you don't, we don't call each other. We just literally don't have a working relationship. And I said, it's not fair for you to judge me and my kids and my life. And I said, you probably don't even know the names of my closest friends. And so
Uh,
Heather's always been someone that doesn't like to be judged. So she realized that she was
mm.
judging me in essence. And so a couple days later, a couple of weeks later, I got the most sincere letter of apology
Mm.
I've ever received. I mean,
Oh,
from
wow.
anybody. I was like so raw, taking responsibility, just saying, I am so sorry. You're right. I prejudged you. I guess I really,
Wow.
yeah. I mean, it was so beautiful. I was like, wow. So in that painful time, I had to kind of surrender a lot of just holding things. Our family had kind of become a rift. I hate to say it, kind of like
Right.
maybe kind of that believer, non-believer, Republican, Democrat, just difference of people. And that was a time that like just didn't even have a chance to grieve my dad, because it was like I had to deal with that. And then out
Oh,
of my
right.
sister's and out of my sister's conversation came this information that my mom's upset with me. So now I'm like, okay, now we're dealing with mom. And so through the last year and a half, to be honest with you, probably a year, it took me about a year of doing the work. Um, I had to come to the realization that my mom and I don't have a relationship. And I had all of these years um, chased this
Mm.
feeling that I felt like a burden, that God was like, you have to be a good daughter. You need to be a good Christian. You got to tie that up with a bow. You have to mend this. And I had been trying and trying and trying, yet so hard, because she just is unwilling, doesn't want to partake, doesn't, it's all on her terms, um, very kind of one-sided. And so it's hard to have a relationship with one-sided. So in that was having to then grieve really the loss of my mom.
Oh, right.
I grieved the
Yeah.
loss of my mom almost more than the loss of my dad. And the reason is because my dad had suffered a stroke 10 years prior to him passing. And really, for 10 years, I had been grieving the loss of that man who
Right.
was strong, capable, full of life, be able to communicate. And I just saw him decline. So, really, towards the end, it was really a blessing, I feel like, for him and his quality of
Right.
life. And,
Right. Right.
yeah, and I know he's in heaven. I mean, he just was an incredible person. So, I know he's much happier and at peace. But it was the mom relationship that God, I mean, literally out of my dad's death came these relationships that almost, I don't know, him and God decided these need to be worked on now. And out of that death came so much life, in the sense of my sister and I mending. And then, but my mom was tough for me, because I had to really acknowledge that she's probably not going to be the mom that I ever need. And some of the tough things that I was hearing from my sister, again, a lot of it kind of that unfair accusations, or putting it on me, for me to bear the
Right.
relationship and for me to take all the
Mm.
responsibility in the relationship. And sure, we
Mm-hmm.
all have our part, but I had for so many years tried with my mom that at some point, I had a therapist be like, you just need to not, you know, don't fall on the sword for this. You're giving 100%, this person's giving 10, and that's not healthy for you.
Right.
So that was and the tough, I think, thing of having to surrender that relationship and having closure for me was that I was never going to get closure from her. And I realized that
Ah.
I could never bring up to her all my feelings, or maybe hurts or needs, because she's just the type of person, she can't hear it. It's always kind of her side, her version, her perspective. And so we, out of this, my sister's talk, I had said to Heather, I said, it sounds like we really need a family meeting. Our family needs to sit down and talk about our grievances, and talk about all this unspoken things that we've, you know, not talked about, or hurts and have. So we met up at my mom's house on a Saturday, and everyone it was really great. It was a wonderful opportunity for everyone to be like, this is what's always hurt me. But I mean, for years of stuff. But I was able to hear my mom, and I knew I needed to hear her out. But I wasn't able to really talk to her, because I know it would just undo every single thing, because she just can't hear
Hmm.
it. She just can't,
Interesting.
she doesn't have the capacity. So it was, that was really the grieving for me after that Saturday, of realizing, oh, I'm never going to be able to have her really understand who I am. And she doesn't really want to have an active relationship other than sit around my table on Thanksgiving once a year. Um, so that was tough. I mean, that was actually truly harder grieving her than my
Hmm.
dad. So I had to just surrender, because it was like these waves kept coming. I was like my dad, and then my sister, and then my mom, and then my brother and I kind of had a little something, and then he's married to my best friend, and I had to
Oh my
like kind of
gosh.
I know. And out of that came a great talk with my best friend Holly, because all this stuff just kept coming, Rechelle. I mean, it was like just popping up. And I was like, gosh, God, what are you doing here? Like how much can I take? And I had
Right,
finally come to that point that I was like, he is doing serious work on all of us and within my family. So I had gotten to that point of, I just have to surrender. Like,
right, 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 right,
yes, like not easy, not fun, but this is clearly you are doing some profound work.
right.
And so I started to look at it more as sorry, let me get my stuff together.
No,
It
no,
was more
it's
as,
all good.
yeah, I think I looked at it more as like surrender, and that it was a sacred space at that
Ah,
point. That this was
ooh,
that this
ooh,
was
that's
something
so interesting.
that was, I was just, okay, I'm along for the ride. What do you want me to do in this relationship? How does that, but also out of all of that, for me, I didn't realize that I kind of felt like um that the message God was even guiding or asking the work for me to do was to stand up in who I am and
Mm,
be authentic
mm-hmm,
and genuine in these, because
mm-hmm,
I've always been the youngest and always kind of
mm-hmm.
wanting to kind of get the attention or the approval, I would say, of
Right.
all of the family members, right? And so chasing that really probably unconsciously for years. And it allowed me to, at least for my family, because you can do great in your one life, but you kind of get back to your family and all that stuff gets
Yes,
triggered, or all that,
right,
all of a sudden you
right.
do feel like 10 again. And
Uh,
I was like, no. And so it really allowed me to be like, this is who I am. I've worked hard at who I am and the life I built, and I'm standing proud. And if you love me and like me, great. And if you don't, you don't. And the same right after that was the family stuff. Then some friendships stuff came up, and it was really interesting too, that I was like, come on, God, like how much more, like it was emotionally, the last year and a half was emotionally draining. I mean, when I would meet with my spiritual director, I would feel like a hot mess every time. And I told her, I said, I'm not normally like this, she was like, no, this is the season, this is what you're going. And she held that space for me, which I really was just amazing through it. But and my husband, thank God for him, and my best friend Holly. So, and my kids, it was really interesting too how much my kids, now that they're almost adults, my son just turned 20, my daughter will be 18 in June, and
yeah.
they held space for me. They supported
Oh,
me. I know. And it's almost like the full circle of all that you pour into your kids, and all of a sudden they rallied
right,
around
right.
me, and they were like, just like my tribe was around me during that time with my family. And then, seeing really who my friends were, shifting kind of some of that. And so it has empowered me. And I kept seeing, you kind of keep getting the same message over and over.
Yes, yes, I
Right. So
do.
like I follow like Mel Robbins and a couple other people on Insta, and I just kept getting these same messages, you know, let people unhook from people that aren't supporting you, if they're toxic, or, if people just can't appreciate who you are, then, just over and over. I mean, I've saved so many screenshots, and I'll send those to, I have two accounts, one for my business, one for my personal. So I'll constantly send it to myself so later I can see it.
Ooh,
But I just kept getting these, you know, memes or messages, or and so I was felt like God was just like, um you're okay, and you need to just be proud of who you are. And if people, see you and cherish that and love you for who you are, those are the right people. And the people that don't, that's okay. Just, you can release those. And it's not right or wrong. It's just at my age, I need to have true friendships. And if someone's not supportive of me and my family, then that's okay. But that I don't need to invest in a whole bunch of time or convince or feel like I need to be a good Christian, I guess, is what I had put upon myself. And I felt like
right,
God was saying, that's not what I'm not asking you to be in unhealthy relationships.
right.
Always
Yes,
love,
yes.
always be your best and shine bright and love. But I no longer have to fall on the sword or carry, like I was carrying that relationship with my mom. I was literally carrying it. And my spiritual director had did a visualization exercise with me of taking kind of like that backpack off and putting it in the river and letting it go down the river. And it was so freeing because I was like, oh, I've been carrying that, not knowing I'd been literally carrying that. So it was good to realize,
Right,
oh, that's not mine. This is not my burden to carry. I can't carry her side of the relationship. I can only
right,
carry mine, and I'm only responsible for me and keeping my side of the street clean, so to speak,
right.
Shout out to Taylor Swift, but
Well, gosh, I have so many kind of like thoughts and emotions that come up hearing your story. One is, well, one is wow. I'm in awe of the fact that you were open to seeing what God was doing at this time. You were asking, what are you doing? What are you doing? You were ready to kind of like receive whatever it was. And that's, gosh, that's not always, obviously not easy to do. I'm also really understanding of you grieving the relationship with your mom, because there's something about the mother-child relationship that it's primary. Of course, the relationship a child has with their father is wonderful, but there's something about the mom that is just, it's different. It's different. It's just, I don't know if it's biology or what, but oh my gosh, the fact that you had to grieve that while your mom is still alive
Mm,
is really, it has to be one of the greatest hurdles or struggles that one would have to go through. And the
mm,
fact that you were able to get to a place of releasing even your mom is also really noteworthy and remarkable. And I think it just goes to show that yes, she's your mom. That does not mean that she is what you need or want. And I think that's something, when we're in our 20s, I remember kind of getting to that place of, oh, okay, I didn't get everything I wanted or needed from my parents. And now I think it's up to me. And we've even had that conversation with our kids. Hey, you probably got some complaints, and we certainly would have done things differently now than we did then. But anything you didn't get from us, you now need to get it for yourself. And if we can help in that way through conversation or some therapy, we're totally game for that. But
mm,
now, please, it's on you. And I just think that's a really an important realization. And the fact that you were able to kind of, have that visualization of and the realization that you have been carrying the responsibility of the relationship with your mom this whole time, when
mm,
that really, like you say, that was not your burden to carry, and freeing yourself through that visualization. I mean, obviously it was far more than the visualization, but the visualization is symbolic of what you had been doing, and the
mm,
being able to free yourself of that, I'm sure had a lot of impact in this whole process of how you move forward, reaching a place of acceptance with your mom. Like, no, she's not everything I want or need. And I'm going to be loving it Thanksgiving. And whenever we chat briefly on the phone or whatever it looks like, you
mm-hmm.
now have surrendered to who she is. Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
real, yeah. And knowing that the people that get me, they're I have relationships with them and they're genuine, and but like you say, the not being capable, you can't do anything with that. You
no,
can't do anything with that. And being
yeah,
able to get to a place where you realize that in a relationship with somebody, I think is so key. It is a form of surrender. It is so freeing. And it brings you so much peace when you realize, well, they can't. They just
yeah.
can't.
It did bring me peace, and it's funny because I didn't at first. There was so much pain. Of course, that's what grief is, right? There's, is is so much pain and reality and realization and like, the rawness of it. And then
Mm.
when I was done, and I would think about it a lot as I was grieving, like think about it, think about it, think about it. And then it was funny, I knew when I was done because I just had peace. I wasn't thinking about her during the day. I wasn't
Oh,
thinking about, oh, it's this and maybe that. And, all of it was like this peace. And what my spiritual director helped me is, she's like, you can unhook from that. Like just I unhooked
mm.
from it. And I think for so long that was it, was I felt so just hoping that one day. And I
Yes.
had just kind of come to that, if one day happens, great, but I no longer can worry about it, bear it, carry it, respond. Like it was,
Hmm.
I have peace. I just don't, and I hadn't had that for so long with my mom, even though I only
Right.
see her once a year. I mean, that's like you said, such a strong influence that the mother-daughter has. And we had a close relationship when I was tiny, tiny, like young, young, young. And then her career just kept building and expanding and building, expanding. She's like world renowned in her field. And it just, I mean, I had to really realize, come on, she's 81 and I'm my 50s, and it's like it's potentially probably it would be a lot to turn the bus around. And so I'm at peace, and that was the biggest gift from my dad. I feel like that then after all this, then I was like, oh,
Yes.
now I have time to grieve my dad because it was like I just
Oh,
like I literally was ironic. I mean, I was like, I told my spiritual director, I said, I want to grieve my dad because I feel like I'm grieving all these other relationships. But
right.
it's I've just been at peace with. And then even the friendships portion, that is kind of, you have to just be at peace and do the best you can, and everything else is, you just can't fix the whole world or everyone else or every
Right.
every
Right.
relationship. You can't. So
Right. I do also love, and I think this is so true, and I've seen this in different family relationships, both directly and like uncles or, brothers, nephews, that sort of thing, that um it just flew out of my mind. Oh, that is so funny. Oh my gosh.
the
I
family
don't know.
dynamics, is that where
Yeah, well,
you
yeah,
were
just,
going?
oh, I know. Yes, thank you. I got it back. That you're going to take that loss and you are going to pour it into your kids in the best
Mm,
way possible. You're not going to like over mother because of that, but you now understand, I did not get this. I want my kids to have it.
that's
So
right.
I'm going to be a very intentional mom, and they're going to be able to look back in their 50s and say, my mom and I are close, and you're gonna
Yeah,
have, they're gonna have that. They're gonna have what you didn't have. And I think there's so much beauty in that.
yeah, 100%. That's the biggest thing, is that I can't control above, but I can control below. And my daughter and I have such a close relationship. She has told me, she's like, you're my best friend. And I've had people say, gosh, well, how are you an artist? How are you so close with your,
Right.
17-year-old, when a lot of moms and teens are like this. And, we're not perfect, but I'm like, because I've invested, I have engaged, I've cultivated this relationship with her because I want to have that with my daughter. She
Right.
is one of the most important people in my life. And,
Yeah.
I've intentionally have done that. And so, um, and she has recognized a little bit, because, when she got older, she would start to ask questions like, how come you and your mom aren't as close as you and I are? Or how come your
Right.
mom doesn't, like, she started to kind of put two and two together and ask all the questions that are like, oh, okay, here we go. But,
Yeah.
she has even said, she's like, mom, she's like, I respect you so much because you didn't really have, the mothering that you needed. And, in essence, I've kind of mothered out of a vacuum, but she's like, you are such a good mom to me. And she's like, I
Oh,
saw how you broke that chain. And I mean, she's literally saying these things. She's quick. She's a
wow.
deep feeler and a deep thinker. So she observes a lot, and she kind of saw the dynamics. But, and I didn't want to portray my mother, her
Right,
grandmother, in a bad way. I just respectfully said, yeah, just, but yeah, so I get to have that special mother-daughter relationship with her.
right.
And that has, in a way, like you said, not smothering or helicopter, but more, um, I think it's given me that peace and joy that,
Yes,
wow, it
so
is such a
beautiful.
special mother-daughter relationship. Yeah, and I feel honored that I get to have that with
Oh,
her
yeah.
and see it bloom. So
And I think it would be sweet anyway, but I think there's an extra little layer, or like the cherry on top or whatever, of sweetness that because you didn't get it the one way, you have
mm,
it the other way, and it just makes it just that much better, I think.
yeah, I
In your,
cherish it more.
yeah, in your gratitude and your appreciation. You already would, but
Mm,
just certain things that we go through just kind of amplify other things that we go through.
it's well said. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, gosh, this has just been incredible. And I think one of the things to teach our kids is that certain people are not capable of certain things.
Hmm.
And, it's like expecting a toddler to tie their shoe. They just can't. They're just not there.
No.
You can put the shoe on them and you can want them to do it and you can whatever. I mean, that's the analogy that came to mind. They're not capable.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not there
And
yet.
yeah, I mean, they
Yeah.
might not ever be, well, in
That's
that
right.
instance, they're not there yet, but there are people, adults, even older adults, who still are not capable of certain
Hmm.
things. And
Yeah.
being able to recognize that, I think, is huge. It gives so much wisdom and discernment. And then to me, that ends up equaling peace, because you realize, oh, they're not capable.
No.
They just can't, for whatever reason, they can't. And so I
Yeah.
can't expect them to be or do that thing that they are not capable of doing. I think that is really huge.
Yeah. No expectations. That's exactly the word. And so now when I just recently saw her, ironically, for I was up in LA for girls' weekend for my birthday, and my mom had she's kind of putting her affairs in order because she saw with my dad's estate kind of some things that she's like, okay, I need to do that for you kids. And so we met and had lunch, and yeah, it was I was in such a different space and mindset
Mm,
of not expecting but holding neutral space. And I was even sharing something that was really meaningful for me, that I had recently hiked Patagonia with my son,
yeah.
and she just quickly switched the conversation. Like she just couldn't
Mm,
even hear when I share about things about my life or my kids. It was so obvious. She just switched and I was like,
interesting.
wow. I was like, it's so clear to me, but now I don't get devastated. Like it hurt,
Right. Yeah,
but
sure.
it was the capability. She just can't even have it's hard for her somehow to, and then I realized, oh, she does that a lot when I'm trying to share, or she doesn't ask about my life or the grandkids. And so it's interesting that I kind of saw with more clarity, but it wasn't devastating to me. I was like,
Right,
okay, that's
right,
kind of like you said, this is just where you're at.
right.
And, it does, it almost, I'm not there yet, but I'm almost at the place of really
Yeah.
having compassion too, of going, that's makes me sad for you that
Yes.
you're so wounded and you haven't done the work to heal that wounding, that you wouldn't rejoice for your daughter and your grandkids, or me sharing a story of having it was like my 2023 best thing that happened in for me was this beautiful hike with my son in Patagonia. Like I was telling her what an amazing conversation we had, and just it was like one of those moments when you're having a moment, you're having that moment.
Wow,
And
right.
it was like she just couldn't.
Wow.
It was so hard for her to hear, instead of being, wow, Erin, that's amazing and how special. And so you just kind of, they're not there, and
Right.
that's okay. But to protect and accept and surrender to, just, yeah, it's a lot of, just I think it brings me to gratitude that I am grateful that I have done that work for myself, because I had to work through just years back, even when I was in therapy
Right,
years ago, I worked
right,
through, all this stuff. But
right,
I'm grateful that I've done that hard work. So, and I told my spiritual director when we were doing all this work this last year, I said, what my goal is I don't want to end up bitter. I said, I don't want to go through all this and end up like tight fisted where how my mom is
right,
a little bit. And I said,
right,
I want to get where I'm really neutral or at peace, or I'm like, that's okay, and that's when I finally had reached that place of peace and neutral. And even this lunch, even though I saw things so clearly, I was like, it was okay, Rechelle. It was
right,
just okay. I'm like, that's just who she is. And so in a way, I was like, I don't know if I'd even share those sacred moments with her. You know
right,
what I mean?
right,
Because I'm
right.
like, if she can't appreciate, or it felt like very much like, throwing my pearls to pigs. So I was like, yeah, it's interesting. It's,
Yeah, it
but
is.
it's all good. God's like healing and working things, and he's working in all our lives. So it's great to it was encouraging to know that I felt like God was guiding through this. It wasn't just
Right, right,
randomness.
right, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and he works it for good, even though it doesn't feel good at the
That's
time. It
that's
does
right.
not feel good at the time at
That's
all.
right.
I'm I'm just so moved, Erin, that you were able to, navigate all of this in a way that was, of course, the pain, the feelings, all of that. You kept thinking and processing and trying to figure things out. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? You didn't
Hmm.
just whatever. You're like, no, I want to understand what's happening. I want to what's going on. I really admire that about
Mm.
you, and that you were able to then arrive where you are now, which is, you've done the work, you're doing the work, you're at a different place. You can meet your mom where she's at, which is
Hmm.
not necessarily what you would want, but you're doing your part, which is really all you can do. And
Yeah.
just meeting her where she is, and just letting her be there, and realizing, like you say, that her wounding has prevented her from being able to do the work or whatever. Is there anything you want to add? Because this has just been an incredible conversation that is just filled with all these wonderful nuggets. And I just really want to thank you for sharing it, because I really believe that when we listen to others, and we hear stories, and we I went along for a little ride right there, and I feel really grateful for how you went through it, and then
Mm.
for the conclusions that you've drawn, and for the wisdom that you've parsed out, and for your sense of peace, and acceptance and surrender and all. I
Mm.
just think it's really is there's a lot of beauty in pain, if you allow it.
Yeah. No, that's how I would summarize it, as kind of, it reminds me of the phoenix coming out of the ashes, that you're like, so much good did come out of it. For me, in all that time when I was like, what are you doing, God? Like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Um, he was doing so much for me, because like I
Mhm.
said, I'm like, oh, you're trying to show me something. You're trying to show me that
Mm.
I have value, or I don't have to stay in unvaluable relationships, or
Mhm.
even though it was painful to have to go through, he was really, I I don't know, the best way I could say is almost standing up for me. Like
Mm.
he just was like, no, this is what you need to go through, and
Mm.
you don't need to
Mhm.
carry this anymore. So
Mhm.
yeah, so I don't have anything else to say other than when you called, ironically, and you said, "Do you have something about surrender?" I was like, "Ah, sheesh." I'm
Do
I thought,
I have
"Oh,
something about
I know,
surrender?
I'm like, do I want to go into all that?" I literally felt like I just closed 23, and I was like, "Oh, I don't want to revive it." But I do think it's a story that hopefully will help someone, and it
Yes,
does have a happy ending, so to speak. And um
yes.
so I yeah, it's not accidental, or it is
No,
coincidental that you called when you
right,
did.
of
And
course,
I'm
of
like, I just
course.
finished the whole thing of surrender. Yes, I do.
Oh, gosh. And now I have goosebumps because for us, for me, for you, this is the way God works. We just, like, I haven't talked to you in a long time. I'll reach out to
Right,
Erin. Yeah, oh gosh,
right.
that's incredible. And then lastly, I want to say that I greatly appreciate and I'm grateful for your sister's reaction, for her
Oh
taking
my goodness.
responsibility and being open and realizing,
Oh,
oh my gosh, because not everyone would do that.
no, the letter was beautiful. I showed it to Roger. I said, look at this. I've never had a letter that was took responsibility, so sincere, so vulnerable. I mean,
Mhm.
it was a beautiful, just out of one conversation of
That's
really kind of having a heart to heart of like, let's just get all the kind of BS out of the way and let's talk here. And yeah, for her to be that humble and vulnerable. And, we've since gone to a concert together and,
oh,
she has mentioned coming down, hasn't happened, but I've just had a busy year too, to be honest with you. But, just knowing that we're at peace in a neutral place,
right,
is great that, that has been kind of mended and
right,
cleaned up and cleared up, right? Because
right,
darkness likes to linger in those places of relationships, and I
right.
feel like we really cast a light on it, and that the light is so beautiful because it just shows truth and cleans up all the stuff, and so yeah, it was
Right.
so much came out of that.
And I want to trace that back to your willingness to take the risk and put yourself out there in a very vulnerable sense and go, wait a minute, is this what you think? I mean, you kind of started the momentum of the whole thing. And who knows how she might have reacted. Thankfully, she reacted in the best way possible. But
Yeah.
that wasn't why you did it. You did it because, like, I know I'm feeling these things, I'm thinking these things, I think you've got some things wrong.
Mm,
Let me share some things with you. And then wherever it goes from there, you're not responsible for, but it
mm.
ended up in this beautiful place. So
Yeah,
yay, Heather. Yay,
I
Heather.
know. Yay, Heather. That's right. Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you so much, Erin. I just
You're so welcome.
feel extraordinarily full of just goodness and knowing that come through with, I want to say flying colors, but that almost trivializes, the fact that you're wiser, you're more accepting, you have peace, you're enjoying all this fruit, which I think is the ultimate.
Mm, yeah. Thank you for having me. I really,
Oh,
really appreciate it.
it was my pleasure.
Yeah.